Now, as I mentioned there, Treasurer Jim Chalmers gave us an update on the state of the economy today, and it painted a pretty grim picture. Labor spent the campaign spruiking wage increases, of course. It was only a couple of months ago, we remember that, but reality's now set in. And instead of real wage increases, inflation looks set to gobble up any rise. Have a listen.
The harsh truth is that households won't feel the benefits of higher wages while inflation eats up these wage increases and then some. Real wages growth relies on moderating inflation and getting wages moving again. Based on current forecasts, real wages are expected to start growing again in 2023-24.
Joining me to discuss this and more is Labor Senator Tony Sheldon. Thanks for joining us, Tony. As a good union man, this must worry you. You talked a lot in the campaign about getting real wage increases underway. Obviously, that won't be happening for a while.
Well, I think the Treasurer has just made it very clear, Chris, and good to see you this afternoon. And that is that we're under very high economic pressure. But the question of wages, which you asked about, it is actually really clear that we've had 10 years of wage stagnation, and we've seen actually the middle class shrink under this previous government. And that's happened because there's institutional problems with how wages rise in this economy and in this country. And those have to be rectified, and have to actually be rectified through this Jobs Summit and this Jobs and Skills Summit in September, which is going to bring all industry players together to turn around and look at the new format for the future. But in the meantime, Labor has supported, as you know, the minimum wage going up. Yeah, we're supporting feminised industry wage increases, which have been the previous government wouldn't support.
Yeah. The wage problem is going to get worse, isn't it? Because you're absolutely right. There was wage stagnation over recent years, but of course there was quite low inflation and there was low interest rates, so it didn't affect workers too badly. Now you've got wages not really going anywhere. You've got high inflation, interest rates going up substantially. This is going to really eat away at real incomes.
And that's why the legislation is important that we provide over the coming months to make sure that wages can get going again. Because under the previous government's settings, wages were going to have been declining and will be declining under their previous legislation they had in place, and we have to change it. To give people a half chance and a better than half chance to turn around and get their wages into a better place, they need to have legislation where they can negotiate, they have a fair bargaining position, and where good companies that are paying decent wages are not unfairly competed with by companies doing the wrong thing and by poorly paying their workforce.
Yeah, we've seen a big change in the forecasting just in the past few months. You heard Jim Chalmers there saying you might start to get some real wages growth at the back end of next year into 2024. I mean, is that a promise? Is that what Labor will deliver, or could we see forecasts change again and that slip backwards?
Look, I think this is going to be really important on what both the opposition does and the crossbenchers. And there's going to be some very sensible, practical solutions that have been put forward now, whether it's be the increase for wages for the aged care industry, whether it be the minimum wage increases, which I might add the previous government didn't support, nor does the opposition support it now. But the real question will be about those various players within the parliament supporting the legislative frame that we're putting forward to make sure that wages can go forward. And I'm confident with that legislative frame, we're going to be in a damn sight better position than we're in right now.
Yeah, well, let's see how we go, because the last thing we want is the old-fashioned wages, prices spiral, have them chasing each other. But difficult challenges ahead for Jim Chalmers and the government. I want to ask you about your new appointment, Tony. You've been made a special envoy for disaster recovery. Tell us exactly what you're expecting to do and what you've done in the first few days in that job.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. And what an important area. And I'm very, it's a great privilege to have this opportunity to support and represent our communities in what are some of the worst situations with all the natural disasters that have been facing us and facing us again into the future. I think of just Lismore as being one of those horrible situations and many other places around the country. What the role entails, and that is making sure that some of the bureaucratic problems that happen, some of the unforeseen challenges that happen when policies are put together between all levels of government, that we can unstick that and improve it in cooperation with other state governments and local government and across the country and make sure we're getting money directly to people that need it when they're hurting. And also part of it is that I've not only been speaking to those on the opposite side of the parliamentary fence, because this is actually an issue which is of national importance. You know, we talk about national security, and rightly so, about having a consensus about certainly between the major parties, but how we move forward. We talk about that in the defence space. We should definitely, and we are talking about that, and it's happening in reality in the natural disaster space. But I've also say this to some of the companies out there that are taking advantage of the crisis that's happening in places like Lismore. And just a recent case, Chris, you may be aware of it, but a recent case where one company providing electricity has been turning around and charging people in the flood-affected houses that have been devastated, thrown out of their house, and then turned around because they couldn't read the meters, give them a price charge on electricity they weren't using because they were flood affected. I mean,
good Lord.
Everyone in Australia knew what happened. Everyone around the world knew what happened.
Exactly.
But these companies are trying to make a bob out of it and turning around and make some of the most vulnerable people. And we need to call that out. I'm calling that out. And Chris, I'm saying on this show, I'm going there on Saturday up to Lismore to get more evidence to make sure we call out those companies that are doing that.
No, good work, Tony Sheldon, absolutely. And if you can cut through the bureaucratic red tape for people in those situations too, that'll be a job well done. So good luck. Congratulations on that appointment and good luck with that task. Senator Tony Sheldon there, Labor Senator for New South Wales. As you heard, he's now got that envoy role for disaster recovery.